The most painful deaths in human history explained. A Black Ledger Archive documentary. Pain is the body's final warning system. It exists to keep us alive. But throughout history there have been moments when pain no longer served as a warning. Because survival was already impossible. These are not stories meant to shock. They are records of human limits. Moments when the body resisted, and then failed. These events were not forgotten. They were archived. Welcome to the Black Ledger Archive. What really is pain? Pain is not just a sensation. It is a complex signal created by the nervous system to alert the brain of danger. When tissue is damaged, nerves fire rapidly. The brain interprets those signals as pain, fear, and urgency. But extreme pain overwhelms the system. Breathing becomes shallow. Thoughts fragment. Time perception slows. In many of the deaths we'll explore today, pain was not instantaneous. It arrived in stages, each one testing the absolute limits of human endurance. This documentary examines historical, medically documented deaths where suffering was prolonged, not to glorify them, but to understand what happens when the body is pushed beyond recovery. Death by asphyxiation. When air runs out. One of the most distressing deaths in human history involves the gradual loss of oxygen. As oxygen levels drop, the body enters emergency mode. The heart rate accelerates. The chest tightens. Breathing becomes frantic. Carbon dioxide builds rapidly, creating a powerful sensation of air hunger. A panic response so strong that the body will fight even when escape is impossible. Historically, this occurred in cave collapses, buried alive incidents, sealed chambers, industrial accidents. As oxygen drops further, muscles weaken. Coordination disappears. Victims often experience confusion and hallucinations. The brain, starved of oxygen, begins shutting down higher functions. But awareness can persist far longer than expected. Loss of consciousness may take several minutes. Death follows shortly after. This is not a sudden process. It is a slow biological shutdown driven by desperation. Dehydration and heat. When the body cooks itself, humans can survive weeks without food. But without water, only days. In extreme heat, dehydration accelerates rapidly. As water levels fall, blood thickens, body temperature rises, organs struggle to regulate themselves. Historical desert deaths and heat exposure cases show a predictable pattern. First comes exhaustion, then confusion, then collapse. As dehydration worsens, the brain swells slightly within the skull, causing headaches, delirium, and disorientation. Internal organs begin failing one by one. In extreme cases, the body's cooling system shuts down entirely, leading to heat stroke. Victims may appear calm shortly before death. A dangerous sign that the brain has lost control. This form of death is especially painful because it combines physical distress with cognitive collapse. The body is overheating, but no longer understands how to stop it. Radiation exposure. The invisible damage. Radiation poisoning represents one of the most prolonged and misunderstood deaths in history. Unlike trauma, radiation does not immediately announce itself. In documented cases from nuclear accidents and experiments, victims often felt fine at first. Then symptoms emerged in stages. Nausea, fatigue, hair loss, skin damage. Internally, radiation was destroying rapidly dividing cells. The lining of the digestive system, bone marrow, and immune defenses. As these systems failed, the body lost its ability to heal itself. Pain increased as tissues broke down and infections took hold. What makes radiation deaths especially distressing is awareness. Victims often understood what was happening, and knew recovery was unlikely. Death could take weeks. The body slowly unraveling from the inside. Pressure and crush injuries. When escape is impossible. Crush injuries have occurred throughout history in mine collapses, structural failure, stampedes. When the body is trapped under heavy pressure, blood flow is restricted. Muscles deprived of oxygen begin producing toxic byproducts. Pain is intense at first. Then numbness sets in. But numbness is not relief, it is nerve failure. If pressure is suddenly released, toxins flood the bloodstream, often causing cardiac arrest. Historically, many victims survived initial entrapment only to die moments after rescue. The body had endured too much damage to recover. These deaths were not immediate. They involved prolonged awareness, limited movement, and extreme psychological distress. Execution methods of the past. Pain as intent. Throughout history, some deaths were designed to maximize suffering. Public executions in ancient and medieval societies often relied on prolonged physical stress. Medical records and historical accounts describe extended restraint exposure, gradual physiological failure. Pain in these cases was not incidental, it was intentional. The body reacted as it always does. Shock, exhaustion, and eventual organ failure. What stands out in these records is how long consciousness could persist, even as the body deteriorated. Modern medicine now recognizes how extreme stress hormones can delay loss of consciousness, keeping the mind alert far longer than expected. These methods are no longer practiced, but their records remain. Psychological pain before death. Not all pain is physical. Some of the most intense suffering documented in history involved anticipation. Victims trapped, isolated, or awaiting inevitable death often experience severe psychological distress. Fear accelerates pain perception. Time feels distorted. Every sensation becomes amplified. The mind, unable to escape, turns inward. This psychological suffering often occurred before physical systems failed, making the experience longer and more distressing. The body may endure, but the mind knows the outcome. Why these stories matter? These deaths were not meaningful because of their pain. They matter because they reveal the limits of human survival. They show us what the body fights to preserve: air, water, balance, and hope. History does not only record triumphs. It records failures. Moments where survival was no longer possible. These stories were not erased. They were documented, filed, recorded. This has been the Black Ledger Archive.